Congress just proposed a $50,000 cap on Social Security benefits. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what's happening, why it's happening right now, what it actually changes, and what to expect next. Quick disclaimer before we get into it. Everything in this video is educational content based on research of publicly available data. I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. With that said, let's get into it. So here's what's actually happening. On March 24th of this year, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget published a paper they're calling the six-figure limit. The idea is pretty straightforward. Put a ceiling on Social Security retirement benefits. No individual would collect more than $50,000 per year. No household, meaning a married couple where both spouses are collecting, would receive more than $100,000 combined. Now, before we go any further, this is a proposal. It has not been passed, it has not been signed into law, but it is being taken seriously. So, what would this cap actually look like in practice? Well, right now, the maximum possible Social Security benefit for a single person, if you delay claiming until age 70 after a career of maxing out your contributions, is about $5,181 a month. That's around $62,000 a year. The cap would cut that top number down to $50,000, or about $4,167 a month. For a couple both receiving maximum benefits, their combined payout could currently reach over $120,000 a year. Under this proposal, that gets capped at $100,000. And to be clear about who's actually hitting those numbers today, it's a very small group. To even get close to $50,000 in annual benefits, you would need to have earned at or near the Social Security wage ceiling, which is $184,500 this year, consistently for about 35 years straight. So this isn't someone who had a few great years. This is someone who spent their entire career in the top earners in the country, decade after decade. So why is this coming up right now? The answer comes down to one number, 2032. That's the year the Congressional Budget Office now says the Social Security Trust Fund will run out of reserves. And just to give you a sense of how quickly this timeline is moving, until recently, the projected depletion date was 2033. Then, in February of this year, the CBO moved it up a full year to 2032. And that's on top of legislation passed in 2025 that accelerated the timeline even further. It keeps getting closer, not further away. And here's what matters most. When the trust fund hits zero, Social Security doesn't disappear. The program still collects payroll taxes every week from every working American, and that money keeps coming in. But those incoming taxes alone would only cover about 77% of what's currently promised. So if nothing changes before 2032, benefits would automatically be cut, across the board, for everyone, by roughly 23%. For someone receiving $2,000 a month right now, that's a drop down to about $1,540. That's $460 less every single month. Let that sit for a second. Now, why is the trust fund running low in the first place? There are a few things happening at once. The biggest is demographic. Baby boomers, 76 million of them, have been retiring for over a decade. At the same time, birth rates have slowed, so there are fewer workers paying into the system relative to the number of people collecting. Back in 2010, there were about 2.9 workers for every Social Security beneficiary. Today, that number is 2.7, and it keeps declining. On top of that, a recent tax law reduced the revenue flowing into Social Security without adding new funding to offset it, pushing the depletion date forward even faster. So Congress is under real pressure to act, and the cap proposal is one of the ideas on the table. Okay, so let's talk about what actually changes if this passes, and what it could mean for people watching this. First, the case that supporters are making. If the cap is set at $50,000 and adjusted with inflation over time, that same think tank estimates it would close about 1/5 of Social Security's long-term funding gap and save somewhere between $100 and $190 billion over the next decade. And here's something that doesn't always make the headlines. The savings from capping top benefits could allow the system to pay slightly more to lower and middle-income retirees. Under some versions of this plan, the bottom 70 to 80% of beneficiaries could actually see their payable benefits go up, not down. But the critics have real concerns too, and the loudest voice is AARP. Their argument is that Social Security was built on a promise. You pay in over your career, you get back what you earned. A cap breaks that relationship. AARP has warned that a proposal like this could quietly open the door to much wider cuts down the road, and they're urging Congress to find solutions that don't touch the fundamental structure of the program. And that brings us to the question that really matters if you're 45, 50, or 55 today and still working. Is this cap just for top earners, or could it eventually reach further down? Here's the detail that almost nobody is talking about, and it's the one that could eventually affect people far below the top 1%. It all comes down to how the cap is indexed going forward. Some versions of the proposal adjust the cap with inflation each year. But Social Security benefits themselves grow faster than inflation. They're tied to wage growth, which historically outpaces prices. So even with an inflation adjustment, the cap, in real terms, gradually moves down the income ladder over time. And other versions of the proposal would hold the cap flat for 20 or even 30 years before indexing it at all. If that version passed, more and more retirees would eventually find themselves under it. Not because they got richer, but because the cap never moved. There's also a practical behavior shift worth understanding. One of the best moves available to anyone approaching retirement right now is to delay claiming Social Security past full retirement age. Each year you wait, up to age 70, adds about 8% to your monthly benefit permanently. But if delaying your claim would push you over the $50,000 cap, that incentive disappears completely. You'd be leaving money you already earned on the table. So even if the cap never directly hits you, it changes how people plan. And that ripple effect matters. So where does this go from here? Realistically, this specific proposal in its current form is unlikely to pass quickly. Any changes to Social Security need 60 votes in the Senate, which means real bipartisan support. And that's always a heavy lift. But the pressure to do something before 2032 is very real. The senators elected in 2026 are the first group in Washington who will have to answer to voters about Social Security within their own 6-year term. That changes the political math. What's more likely than one sweeping change is a package, a combination of smaller adjustments. Some version of a benefit cap for high earners may be combined with changes to the payroll tax, possibly some adjustment to the retirement age. Nobody in Washington is going to solve a $25 trillion long-term shortfall with a single policy. So the cap is probably one ingredient in a much larger recipe, not the whole meal. But here's the thing worth sitting with. Whether or not this exact proposal passes, the conversation it represents is not going away. Congress has to act on Social Security before 2032, and every option on the table involves someone paying more, someone receiving less, or some combination of both. The benefit cap is one of the more politically appealing options right now because it only visibly affects a small group today. That's exactly why it's gaining traction. So while Washington figures this out, there is one practical thing you can do right now, today. Log into your Social Security account at ssa.gov and look at your projected benefit. It takes about 5 minutes. You'll see what you're on track to collect at different claiming ages. And then, separately, with a financial professional, you can think through what a 20 or 25% reduction to that number would mean for your overall plan. Not because that cut is certain to happen, but because understanding your range of outcomes is just good planning. Social Security isn't going away. That part is clear. But the version of it that exists in 2032 may look a little different than what was promised when you first started paying in. The $50,000 cap is one proposal in what's going to be a long and messy political negotiation. And the best thing you can do is understand what's being debated before decisions get made for you. If you found this helpful, hit like. It genuinely helps more people find this kind of content. Drop your thoughts or questions in the comments. And if there's a specific part of the Social Security conversation you want me to break down next, let us know below.